All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Howard. I'm the Youth and Services Community Manager here for DBRL. And we wanted to remind people who might not be aware that we are open since about June 3rd with limited hours. We have curbside service. You can pull up and get your books. We'll bring them out to your car. Just like Columbia, come in, wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. We ask that you limit your time in the building so we can get more people in and out. And no groups are allowed to meet, so families are fine, but no unrelated people meeting up and having meetings at this time. So we'll reevaluate as the weeks go on. After the workshop, there will be a quick poll that I'll put up on the screen that will help us for future programming and what you're looking for. But the real reason you're here tonight is Katherine Miller. She's currently the program coordinator for the Triple P, Positive Parenting Program, and it's part of the Boone County Early Childhood Coalition. And this evening, she's going to take us through ways to balance work and family, which is even more challenging these days, as you know. So if you have questions as she goes along, please put them in the chat, and she's going to stop and take them every once in a while. I have a few library resources I've gathered just to make sure everybody's up to speed, that I'll put in the chat as well. So fingers crossed for all your internet fairies out there. Take it away, Katherine. Have fun.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So things are a little different. So if you've ever come to a seminar before, what happens is you come, I pass out pre-tests, and then we get some post-tests. And we usually have a screen up, and then we kind of work through the screen. Well, I've been sitting in trainings and different things, and it's really hard when there's like a blank screen up all the time and no one really interacting with you. I tend to decide I'm going to multitask when I'm doing things. So I'm listening to a webinar and I'm washing dishes. I'm doing this, and then I kind of get to a point where I feel like my energy isn't all there. So I'm going to try to not do that to you guys. Also be willing to look over and answer some questions during chat if you have any. But things are a little different right now. So usually we talk about that balancing work and family, what it might look like when things are what we would consider normal. So kids are going in seat to school, parents are maybe working in the house or outside of the home, we're just trying to balance and get everything together. Well, as we know with COVID, things are quite different, and balancing work and home and school is looking quite different. So most people started Columbia Public Schools last week. If you haven't chose to send your kids in another direction, and there was lots of kind of mishaps and missteps, and we're hoping week 2 will be better, first day of week 2. So we'll see how that goes. But I kind of want to talk today about getting kind of the house in order and home in order to be able to work, manage school, and do everything that's needed of parents right now. And so we'll kind of walk through some of these things, and then we'll take some questions, and we'll kind of look at what can we do differently? How can we structure things to help us be more successful in those things? And what can we do? So I kind of want to start out by saying, one of the best things that we can do is when things are going to be different or there's changes that's going to be made is call together a family meeting. And so a family meeting looks like you bring all the parties that are going to be involved together, and you discuss how things are going to change and what things are going to look like from now on and how things are going to be different. So right now we may be calling everyone together and saying, hey, this is what school is going to look like now, and this is what working from home is going to look like now, and this is how we're going to do it. These are the expectations that we have, and this is what our days are going to look like now. And so one of the things that I can say that has come out of this is my kids are far more respectful in terms of being able to see if you're on the phone with someone. So before, my kids would walk in a room and be like, Mom, da 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 da, and I might have been doing a Zoom or something like that. And I had to set up a system, which was shutting the door, saying I'm on a Zoom so they wouldn't interrupt. But now I'm also having to be as respectful to that because they're on Zooms. So just something to think about is like, how are things that are normal really changing? And so that's kind of some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually you guys. So we mention self-care all the time. Self-care is so very important because you can't pour from an empty cup. So what are you and your spouse or significant other in the house doing for self-care? If you are stressed and you are burnt out, it's really hard to help your children, to help your family, to maintain things, to keep things going if you, who may be seen as the, the organizer of the house, isn't up to par. So I want to make sure that you're still finding time for some self-care. Self-care can look different in every household. That could be, when you get up in the mornings, you get up 30 minutes early just so you have 30 minutes of quiet time to kind of relax, regroup, get yourself together, have a plan for the day. Self-care may be adding in some working out. So maybe you're, walking a trail, walking your neighborhood, doing things in your house as a way of working out. We have steps that lead up to our house. So, we've been doing step runs. We've been doing tree sits. So we have a mat, you put it up against the tree. Instead of wall sits, you're doing tree sits. There's other ways that you can find ways to work out at home if you're not comfortable going back to a gym. Just looking at self-care, finding a book that you want to read, telling yourself you'll be able to read 10 pages a night, or maybe you're giving yourself grace and you have time for a chapter. I just want you to realize how important self-care is, and I don't want you to give up on self-care because you think you don't have time for it or you're too busy. Because what that'll do is just burn you out, and then you won't be any good to the rest of the family. So make sure that you are setting up your self-care. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is these family meetings. So we're going to pull, like I said, everybody who's involved into the family meeting, and we're going to discuss what our days are going to look like. So maybe you have made an agenda for everyone. So that today might look like, when are the kids on Zoom? So you would have maybe a piece of paper that you've written out or typed out. Definitely handwritten things are okay. Whatever way to communicate what the schedule of the day looks like for each child. So if you think about it, when kiddos go to school, usually there was like a board and it says, 8 to 8:30, people are coming into school. 8:40, we do the pledge. Then maybe 9 o'clock is specials. I'm totally making things up because my kids are in high school and I have no clue what elementary does these days, but something like that. There was a schedule. We even have that in preschools and daycares because kids like to know what's coming next, what's expected of them. If you've ever been to a conference or anything, you want to know, when's your break? When do you get a minute? So working through that for your kids, what's their schedule look like? And that's going to look different for maybe multiple kids in the house. I'm hearing some teachers, depending on their grade, are actually teaching the whole time or trying to entertain the kids. Some teachers are giving some form of instruction and then letting kids do the rest on their own. So it's going to look different. So trying to set up a structure right now, but talking to your kids and saying, this is what I think it's going to look like, but it may change. What's important is putting that in your kids' heads that things are fluid right now, right? Things may change and it's okay, and we have to adapt because our kids feed off of us. So if we are really worried and concerned and stressing about what things are going to look like, they're going to feed off of that and feel the same way. But if we say, hey, our job is to go with the flow until we figure out what the flow is, our kids are like, oh, okay, I get it. These are the things I'm supposed to do. But if something needs to change, then we understand it needs to change. So getting together the kids' schedules. When are breaks, putting that in there. If you don't know, maybe checking in with your teacher. I think I've heard with some of the elementary kids, they get like a break in the morning, and then they have a lunch break, and then they come back and maybe have some breakout rooms or some specialist classes, something like that. So helping your kids understand that. If their schedule is going to change daily, then making a different schedule for them so that they understand, today it's Monday, here's what we do on Monday. On Tuesday, I do these things on Tuesday. If you're really tech savvy, then you can always make a Google Doc or a Word doc for them that they can pull up and have their Zoom link right there. So with the little kids, the Zoom link may always be the same, but if you have middle schoolers or high schoolers, those Zoom links can change based on what class they have. So you can write what time they have class and then the Zoom link that they would click on. So that's a way to organize the day for the kids so that they understand what's going on and the things that they can do. So what about you, right? So what about if you're a working parent? How do we balance all of this? Has been one of the biggest struggles. So first I have to say to you, again, that self-care and also realizing things are going to be so fluid, right? Nothing is set. Everyone is trying to understand how this is going to go and how it's going to work. So if you are home right now and you aren't working out, like working in the home, you may have more time to kind of sit in the Zooms, understand how things are going, and make adaptations. But if you're working from home, you may have an employer that expects you to be on, 9 to 5 as well. So you can't micromanage your kiddos, right? And so that's been kind of the complaint. How can I work and how can I manage the kids? So I think we have to give overall grace to everyone, including the teachers, including our kiddos, and understand that, it's not going to go the way we would like it to. So I would encourage you this week to try to look at what is your kid's schedule, what is their max out time, where do you start to see the meltdowns. So I want you to do some tracking if you have time or if you can, right? So how long is it before your kid starts to fade away? That may mean they get up and come talk to you. They may be in the kitchen getting something, but you hear them maybe not at their area. See how long that is, because what that may do is help you to understand how long can my kiddo really be in front of a computer and entertain themselves, right? So if we're seeing I'm only getting 20-minute segments out of it, then one of the things we might need to do is email the teacher and say, what time are you teaching things? Because it seems like my child isn't able to stay the whole duration of the time that you're teaching. And I want to know, are you doing reading from 9 to 9:30? I want them to be there for that book. Is the afterwards a discussion? Because maybe my kiddo needs to check out and not be a part of the discussion. And I'll have that discussion with them later. Just really trying to work out what's going to work best for you. Sorry if I seem like I'm bouncing around. I'm sitting on this ball. I'm really trying to work on this core strength here. So I'm sitting on a ball, and then I feel myself being like one of the kids and want to bounce on the ball. So I'm trying to not to do that while I'm presenting. So if you see me, feel free to say something and I'll try to catch myself as well. But anyways, so just being adaptable. So let me take it back to this family meeting. So we kind of looked at talking to our kiddos about schedules and getting a schedule for them. The other thing in the family meeting is discussing where's our workspace? What does our workspace look like? So a lot of people have had to adapt, right? Not everyone has a desk and have a desk space ready for their kids. Some people are working in the kitchens. Some people are working in their living rooms. Some people are working off their couch. Kids are working out of their bed. What does your workspace look like? And is that going to be able to help your kiddo be successful in school? So I would say, the kiddos who are working in their bed, are they more apt to say, oh, this is too much, let me lay down, I'm already in my bed, versus a kiddo who's sitting at the table, who doesn't have maybe as much distractions as a fabulous warm cover and a nice pillow sitting next to me. What's your kid's workspace look like? Is it a workspace that's able to actually be a workspace? So sitting at the kitchen table, are there other people coming in and out of the kitchen, getting things out of the refrigerator, or is this now a designated workspace for you or your children? So looking at what's the workspace look like. Now, if you've had to make makeshift workspace, I got it, I get it, it's fine. But what are the rules to that workspace? So do we discuss, we don't want people just walking in and out all day. So, we will have breaks at 10, we will have water breaks, we will have food breaks, we'll have lunch breaks. But we don't want people just crossing in and out of their space because it's distracting. So kind of looking at what does our workspace look like? Is it distracting to the kiddos, or can they take the time to focus and really get their schoolwork done without worrying about distractions of people coming in and out? The other thing to really think about is what does your workspace look like? So if you're trying to work from home, and you're in an area where you're trying to manage the kids, you're trying to manage your own job, you're trying to manage the household, that's going to become very stressful for you. So, again, what does the workspace look like for the people who need to work? The other thing we need to talk about at this family meeting is what's everyone's job, right? So now that everyone is doing things differently, our household chores, our household responsibilities may look different. So discussing what that might look like. So keeping a routine has been helpful for a lot of people. So waking kiddos up in time that they may have had to catch a bus, right? So some kids may have been up really, really early. And now you're thinking, oh, we don't have to start school and I don't have to get up and take kids anywhere, so I'll let them sleep in. While that may be good for some families, that's also an issue for others because that disrupts what the normalcy is going to be like. And we'll say when, because we want to be positive and project. So when we go back to school, we'll need this normalcy to be what it is. So keeping a schedule means getting kids up in time to still be able to do things that they did. So if they had morning chores, making sure they're getting up, they're still doing their morning chores, they're having their breakfast, they're doing the things that they would normally do before school would start. Now, you may be able to scale that back because there isn't that ride the bus time or drive time, but we still need to keep schedules in place. Schedules help keep normalcy in our life. It helps to still keep things done because if you've ever been a parent and you know when you make if you give slack on things being done such as chores and everything else, it falls on usually back on the parents, which will then overwhelm you. So trying to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed and kids stay in a schedule and continue to do the things that need to be done, keeping on that daily schedule that you have is very important to do. So getting kids up, getting their morning chores done, getting breakfast and getting seated and be ready to be a learner. What does ready to be a learner looks like? I think we have to discuss that with our kiddos because they've not been an at-home learner for the most part. So what does being a learner look like? Do they have the things that they're going to need by them? You know, if there is a book that they're supposed to be reading along, do they have that book with them for the day? So they could, you know, oh, it's in my room, I can run and go get it because I'm at home, which is true, but we're setting ourselves up for future failure when we operate like that because if kids don't put things where they belong, what happens when we go back to school is, oh, I don't have my book in my bag. Oh, I don't have my book where it needs to be. And we don't have our iPads or we don't have all the things we need to be with us to be successful at school. So we have to make sure that we're having those things that we need to be successful with us through the day by us. So we're making a plan at night. What classes do we have tomorrow? What materials will we need? We're getting things ready so that we can, again, stay on a schedule and stay making sure that we are producing learners, making sure that they're ready to face their day with the things that they need. So what else do we do during a family meeting? What other kind of conversations do we have? The expectations, you know, like I need you to have your school stomach while we're at home, right? We're not getting snacks in and out of the refrigerator. We're not going for drinks constantly. We're acting like school learners because our teachers don't let us break out snacks whenever we want. We can't just get up and go get a drink whenever we want to. So, you know, bringing a water bottle beside us. So if we need to get a drink, then we can get our drink and continue on being a good learner, right? If it's snack time, what's the teacher say about snacks? Maybe she doesn't mind if your kid eats a snack while they're on Zoom, but what are the rules about that? So making sure that we understand what's acceptable and what's not, because a lot of times they have all these kids on together. And while we'd like to say that other kids don't pay attention to other kids, they're just paying attention to the teacher, we know that doesn't happen. So if someone is like, oh, what is that, a fruit snack? I want one. Is that a dinosaur? Right? So now we're distracting because kids are focused on someone's snack and what's going on in their household versus what's going on with the class. So depending on how the teacher runs the Zoom, and teachers are doing it differently. So thinking about when can we have snack? When will snack be? Maybe the teacher is giving you a time of the day so that you can set in times for snack. I know most of them do have like an hour or so for lunch. So what are you going to do for your lunch break? Who's cooking lunch? Are you utilizing the school free lunch sites? Are you cooking at home? What does lunch look like? So making that plan. I encourage you guys to look at that plan on Sundays and plan out your week. So before you might have been packing lunches so that really hasn't changed much for you. But if you're at home and you weren't planning on being at home and feeding kiddos, so what is that going to look like? I have a few parents that are doing one-on-ones with me that are still packing lunches. So their kids get up, as part of their morning routine, they were to pack a lunch for school, they pack a lunch for at-home school. So they know they're not rummaging through the refrigerator, they're not getting into things they're not supposed to get into. They packed an approved lunch, and that's what they're supposed to sit and eat when it's time to eat lunch. The reason why, that's helpful is some people are on a food budget, right? We can't afford to feed kids day in and day out as they snack, and get into things. So people have to stay on a financial budget. So you need your kiddos to eat they're supposed to eat at a certain meal, and that's it. If you've ever had kids on breaks, a lot of times you'll go to the grocery store, you'll buy a week worth of what you consider to be snacks, and by day 2, they're gone. And then nobody ate them, right? Nobody ate them at all. Nobody knows where they went to. No one has any clue what happened to them, but they are gone. And so this way, if you're packing a lunch, then that way, whatever the snack was for the day goes in the lunchbox, and they know like that's what they're supposed to eat. And when the lunchbox is empty, the lunchbox is empty. If they want an extra snack, you can say, what's in your lunchbox? If there's nothing there, you say, well, dinner is at, and I expect us to eat dinner then. And that's how things are going to go, right? We're not providing extra snacks. We're not putting that extra stress on ourselves. We're helping our kids, again, to stay on a schedule and to do things like they would if they were normally going to school. So that's one of the things that you can do to stay on track is pack a lunch for the day, and then the kiddos get their lunch out when it's time to eat. Another thing that you can do is plan for the week. So what is lunch going to look like? Are you going to meal prep that? Are you going to cook for them? So it's lunchtime. I'm going to stop what I'm doing for the day. I'm going to prepare a meal, and then they're going to eat. For some people, that might be just fine. But if you're working, you might not have the time to do that. So being able to meal prep on Sunday might be helpful for you for the rest of the week. So perhaps you're, browning up a couple of pounds of hamburger, and then you're going to be able to have, spaghetti for lunch, and then you're just adding some sauce to the pre-cooked hamburger, heating it back up, making some noodles, and lunch is ready. Just whatever kind of curves that you can do to help yourself be successful for the day. The other thing is then, what are the kiddos' chores and what do things look like after school? So when your time to log off, it may not be time for you to log off for work. So what is the expectation of the kiddos when they're done with quote unquote school? So sitting down in that family meeting and having that discussion. A lot of times having that time, clock time is helpful. So they have that schedule up, and you may have from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, you may have free play. And free play looks like, so what are they allowed to do? You may have a fenced-in backyard, or you may allow them to play in the neighborhood, so they may do that. You may say it's free time in terms of coloring. You may have activities planned for them. Maybe that's their free screen time. We'll talk about that a little later because there is some concern about screen time for free time versus screen time for schooling, and there being a lot of screen time. But we'll circle back around to that. So what can they do from 3 to 5 or from 3 to whatever time you get off that's approved for you? If you have older kiddos, do they have chores that need to be done? Can they assist with helping with dinner, right? So now they're home. Before, they may have been riding a bus home. They may have had after school activities. They may not have been able to be as helpful to you because they had other things to do themselves. But if they're not doing those things, have you talked with your kids about what is the expectation of them in terms of helping? Can they start dinner while you're still finishing work? Can they help with activities while you're still finishing work? What kind of things can we do as a family to help everybody be successful? So those are some of the things that we may want to be looking at and discussing when we have these family meetings. So that's kind of what a family meeting looks like, what we gather, what we discuss, and how we communicate. If you're working with a partner or a spouse in your home, I encourage you to have a conversation one-on-one with them and have a conversation of expectations. So who's supposed to help with the kids? Who has meetings that they can be interrupted from if you're both working from home? What does our days look like if one person leaves the house and one person's at home, but that person at home is still expected to work? They can't be expected to work and, maintain and take care of the kids because their job is equally as important as the person who's leaving the house. So what does that look like? So talking with your spouse and setting things up. Several employees or employers are willing to work with employees. So I'm working with a family now who was very stressed out about time management, working with the kids at school, and how they were going to do their day. So I encouraged them both to email their bosses and say, Is there any way that we can do a split schedule? Is there a way that if there's set meetings, I attend the set meetings, and if not, I do my work in the evening, like really working and saying what does our household look like and what does our household need? That's not to say your employer is going to absolutely say yes to that, but at this point, there are lots of employers who are willing to work with their employees because they know this is difficult times and uncharted territory. So maybe your workday could be earlier. Are you able to get up earlier and work from 6 to 2 where before you worked 8 to 4? Are you able to log in later and work like 12 to 6 so that you can help with maybe some of the schools and other stuff the first thing in the morning? But seeing if there's a flexible schedule that your boss may work with, and your spouse doing the same, because maybe you guys can complement each other, right? So one person works the morning, one person works the afternoon. Maybe you both have to pick up some slack in the evenings once kids go to bed or something like that to finish your notes or finish extra work that you can do. So if there is a way for you guys to alternate schedules and work through that, talking about that ahead of time. There's nothing worse than having that blow up because someone is fed up with not feeling like they're getting the help or support that they need. Discussing that just because you're at home doesn't mean you're in charge of everything. So sometimes our roles have had to change. You both worked out of the house, but now one of you is able to work from home. That doesn't mean you're the sole caretaker of the house, the kids, and your job. That's unfair to you. So what do things look like? Who's doing bedtime routines? Who's doing, helping with chores? What does that division of work and labor look like? So I really encourage you to have that discussion, with a spouse or significant other, if you live with one. If you're a single parent like myself, then I encourage you to have that discussion with yourself. Yes, with yourself, because if you have not decided how you are going to organize your day, it's very stressful to go in and day out and try to wing it and figure it out. It's much nicer when you have a plan of what needs to be done. So, how are kids going to be able to help pick up the slack of housework? Because I'll tell you, when we're home all day, we use far more dishes, we use far more cups, we use more things than if we weren't home. I have made sure to say, if you don't want to wash the cups, then I suggest we get one out and use it for the day. When kids have to start cleaning up after themselves or doing more, so they're more cognizant of what they're doing, right? So if I said, that really feels like that was your 4th cup you've had today, and I see 6 cups in the sink. So I'm going to need you to wash those 4 cups before you go to bed tonight. The next day they're like, well, why do I need 4 cups if I got to wash 4 cups? I think I'll work with 1 cup, right? So when we put that ownership back on the kiddos, that kind of helps. And that really depends on age, of course, but don't think kiddos of younger ages cannot help. And so we'll get to that. So now we kind of talked about setting the stage, looking at routines, having a family meeting, having a meeting with our spouse or significant other or self to kind of plan out the days and plan out what things will look like. So let's kind of move into what else that we can do while we're kind of in this crazy times. So we talked about routines and keeping routines such as morning routines, but also being able to keep our routines such as our bedtime routine and our evening routine. So what time are we going to eat dinner? Is that going to be consistent? What time do we have to play outside? What time do we have to get that energy out? What does that look like? If you've altered your time and you have to get back to work, building in some time for your kids to get out and do things and still have that. Setting kids on a bedtime routine. So that's so important, because again, we're going to use that positive word, when we go back to in-seat classes or when we go back to some form of normalcy, we don't want to have to struggle with bedtime routines, getting kids into the bed so they can get up the next morning. I'm having those power struggles again. So keeping kids on a routine is very helpful during this time. Now, I know a lot of parents are like, oh, we're in the house, so it doesn't matter as much. We don't have to get up as early. But again, we're keeping systems and routines in place so that we don't have to struggle later when it's time to implement them. So what does our bedtime routine look like? Are we keeping the bedtime routine? Who's doing story? Who's managing what? If roles have had to change because now someone's working in the evening and they used to do bedtime, having that discussion with your kids and saying, mom, dad, or whomever schedules had to change. So bedtime, this is going to look like this, right? Kids want to know what's coming next and how things are going to go. That's really important in kids' life. Just like in your life, you want to know what's the routine, what's expected. Kiddos want to know the same things. So being able to keep those routines in place help our kids to be able to have some normalcy in our life during this crazy time. They know at bedtime, there's teeth brushing, baths, 3 books, 2 stories, a tuck-in, or whatever the case may be. So keeping that routine so that they can have some form of normalcy in their life is very important for them. And if the routine needs to change, of course, last minute things happen, but if the routine is going to need to change for the long haul, that we have that discussion with our kiddos and talk to them about, this is why the routine is changing and this is what it's going to look like from now on. You may have their input into it, maybe both parents used to put people to bed and they divided the duties, but now one parent has to work because they've switched their shifts. So discussing, hey, I can't do, 3 songs and 2 books every night. So now we're going to be able to do what and discuss what it is and help them to pick. Would you rather have 3 stories and 1 song? Would you rather have 3 songs and 1 book? Would you rather have 2 and 2? Whatever you're capable of giving, and then letting them choose between the 2. So that might be something that helps them to adapt to the change, but then still knowing things are okay and that things are going to have some form of normalcy for the night. What else do we kind of want to set up? So we've talked about kind of our schedules in the day. We've talked about keeping schedules at night. So another thing that we need to do is working on keeping things interested at home. So that might sound pretty crazy in terms of like, what do you mean keeping things interested? We're busy, they have school, I have work, those are the things we have to do. What do you mean keeping things interesting? So what kind of things are we going to do that we can look forward to? So if we don't have time during the day to maybe go to the park or take walks outside, that we say, Friday evening we're going to, on the weekend we're going to. So setting things up for future times that the kiddos can look forward to. You may be working on incentives. So this is a time that you may have to incentivize, because sitting at a desk or a table for as long as they do is really, really hard. So if you may break down and have a sticker chart. So I'm working with the parents that right now we're working on 20-minute blocks. So if they can stay focused for 20 minutes, they get a sticker. They can stay focused for the next 20 minutes, knowing that they're not going to be successful all the time, but they're working towards being able to go to Andy's and choosing whatever they want to off the menu. So this is really huge for this kid. And he's working really, really hard on focusing during the daytime so that he can earn his trip to Andy's. And he says he's buying a large concrete with extra toppings, and his mom had said, okay, and came back and I said, so he can have his whatever he wants. And then she was like, well, okay, he can pick something off the menu or have 2 add-in toppings. So we did have to set a limit so that we won't be upset when we get there and your kid orders a large concrete and starts adding all the add-ins and you're like, oh, that wasn't what I budgeted for. So setting up some limits to that. But having something to work towards. Maybe the family wants to, take a trip to Devil's Icebox and walk through it. Maybe the family is going to go for, a road drive somewhere and pick apples. I don't know, just pulling things out. But whatever that may be an incentive for your kiddos to work towards, I'm setting up some system that everyone can work towards it. It can be individual. It can be a family. If you have multiple kids working, it may be something that we do as a family instead. So when the family has so many coins or marbles, then we'll do something that means that everybody can work hard. I'm happy to set up a one-on-one with you if you want to do something like that, to see if it's better to have a family incentive or individual child incentive, because sometimes we have one kiddo that may struggle more than the others. And so you don't want to put that on that one kiddo who struggles and the other 2 kids are like, oh, it's not fair. They are never getting any marbles and we're not going to get to do it. So sometimes looking at kiddos as individuals versus family, but also sometimes that family incentive where we all work together, we all have to do a good job, incentivizes others to work hard because they want to do it for their family. It really just kind of depends on your kid and we can kind of talk through that and see what works best for your kiddos. So we kind of talked about schedules and things like that, routines. But what else can we do during this time to balance work and family? So one thing that you want to do is set the stage for discussion, right? Helping your kids have permission to say, this is hard, I'm struggling, this isn't working for me, giving them that space to say that, and then saying, you know, and trying to work through, what can we do to work for you? What do we need to do? How can I help you? It's hard. This is new for them as much as it's new for you. So how can we work through setting the stage for families to be successful? I encourage you to talk to your spouse or significant other or a friend if this is hard for you too, and saying, this is hard. How can I figure this out? What do I need to do? And some of that may be that you're taking notes on yourself. What is hard for you during the day? Is it hard for you to log on in the mornings? Is it hard for you to stay focused during the day because you can hear your kiddos maybe struggling? Like, what is hard for you, so that we can work through what's hard for you and make a plan for you, as well as what's hard for your kiddos and make a plan for them. I have high school kids, and I have one that is flourishing during this. I have boy-girl twins. So my daughter has found a way to make it work. We've made schedules for her. She knows what time she has to be on. She's checking all of her logins. She's doing everything she needs to do. Her twin brother says, this is too hard. I don't learn like this. I can't do this. And last week was a disaster for him, and he didn't get anything done. And so I have 11th graders, soon to be college kiddos. And so I'm really pushing on my end. How do you problem solve for yourself? How do you advocate for yourself? How do you do the things that you need to do for yourself? Because I'm not going to be there when you go off to school, and I can't solve your problem. So my kids are older, but I'm really in the back things, trying to advocate for their success. But I'm also their mom, right? And I want them to be successful. So when I see that advocating and pushing them to push for themselves isn't working, then I have to step in and try to do something. And just like some other parents, like, I'm not always at home. If all of us are needing to be on Zoom, our Zoom does not support 3 people full-time, 4 people full-time on the internet. So often I'll come to my office to do my work, which means I'm not home to help monitor. I do have an ADHD kiddo, and so staying on task is really, really hard for him. And so we have now decided after this weekend and having to try to catch up, I've kind of implemented 2 things. So my daughter, who loves gas money, is going to assist her brother in schooling, right? She's not in charge. She's not controlling things. She is assisting. This is a great life skill for her because she gets to work with someone who isn't interested in doing the work, who complains all the time. But she has to have a good temperament with him because she has to work with him to be able to get her gas money. And so this is a great learning skill for her, because there's going to be bosses that you get that's hard to work with, but you know, you got to stay employed. You got to do what it takes to make that living. So I guess she's learning that skill a little early, but she's helping him get on track and stay on schedule. She comes back and gives reminders. Now I'm, lucky in a position that I have this opportunity that someone can help the other one, but also like setting my kid up and saying, he has to log on for which Zooms, but other than that, he's picking something to work on for the day. We are emailing teachers and saying he can't multitask through the day and switch from subject to subject. He'll get on the Zooms, he'll hear the material, but he can't get off and do the work and then switch again and do the work. It's just not working for him. So we are now looking at, we're doing US history today. We're doing geometry tomorrow, which means we may have multiple days of work to do within that day, but we're working on all of them that day. So, feel free to email me and I'll report back if that's working, but we're trying to find a system that works best for us. And we're communicating with the teacher and saying, hey, things may not be turned in on time because this is the new system that we have to have. So I'm encouraging you guys as parents to say, what can we do with our kiddos? I see in the chat, someone said, how many kids do you have and how old? So I have 3. I have a 24-year-old and I have 16-year-old twins. So my kids are in high school. And I have a 3-year-old grandson who likes to make his way there often. And when daycare was closed due to positive cases, he was there with us all day as well. So it's a balancing act for sure, and working with how we can assist everyone. And when I tell you entertaining a 3-year-old during our days was not the greatest, I was very thankful school hadn't started yet. And I'm hoping his daycare stays open during this time. So managing kids, different kiddos in different ages can be most definitely hard. If you have some in elementary, some in middle school, some in high school, how do you set up a schedule that's going to accommodate everyone? I think we have to look at, I would encourage you to look at what's the hardest schedule to accommodate, what's the easiest schedule to accommodate, and looking to see what's a balance between them. So if our elementary school kids are only logging into one Zoom, where can we store that link on the homepage for them, if that's possible for them, so that every day they know where to go look for that Zoom, how to get on it, and stay on it. If they lose it, how do they get out? Practicing. So with the littles, practicing what does being on a Zoom look like? If you have the capabilities to set one up for them, Zoom platform is actually free. So if you wanted to download it and work with your kiddo on, can they get on Zoom by themselves? What happens if you accidentally get off? What if you need to go to the bathroom? What do you do? What do you need to do if you need to turn your screen off? How do you do that? But having some practice time with them and setting them up so that they know what they're supposed to do and they don't have to call out for you is helpful. Again, this is, week 2, we're all getting used to this, but having them practice those skills and learning how to do them is helpful. The other thing that I'm hearing, and this is the same for high school, is that kids are having to be in multiple platforms. So they may be doing Zoom, but then they may have to go to another platform to enter schoolwork if they're in, upper grades, like 4th through high school. So they're using another platform to submit work. Do they know how to get in that platform? Do you know how to get in that platform? So that was something, encouraging for me to talk with them about, because, when a kid popped in and said, hey, I don't know how to get into, I think it was Saba or something. I was like, me neither, I don't know. And so I had to say, well, what are the steps to figuring this out? Did you get an email about it? Can you look back through your emails? And I'm doing the same. Did I get an email about it? And I just kind of skipped through it because I didn't feel like it pertained to me. My kiddos were doing it. So have we tried out these platforms and how do they work? Talking about frustrations with technology. So we know that Schoology has had some struggles. Zooms have had some struggles. So sometimes teachers send them a link in an email and they may have missed a piece. So do we have multiple ways to get into that Zoom? So, we have, like I said, for the littles, it's easier to set it up where maybe it's on a desktop or maybe it's on a certain screen that they can just click on, where it's pulled out of an email or pulled out of something so they don't have to go through multiple steps to get to it. Can be helpful for them to navigate on their own. If not, do they have it set up where they can find their links easier through multiple platforms? Because sometimes we found it works through an email, sometimes we found it works on Schoology. So do they know multiple ways to get on things has been one of the things that, I've worked with some families on in their settings. Saying, I'm really stressed and I'm struggling and I need a break. We put a lot of pressure on our kiddos to stay. We don't want our kid to be that kid in the Zoom. But if they are struggling and not able to sit still and not able to focus, you're doing no one any good by forcing them to stay there. I've been contacted about a lot of Zoom meltdowns. Kids are crying because they are struggling, right? And they're struggling for multiple reasons. They're struggling because they can see their friends on Zoom, but they don't get to see their friends, right? They're not getting to play with their friends. They're not getting to do things with their friends. And kids are struggling with that. We've seen kids struggling because being on a screen all day is hard. It's hard for adults. It's definitely hard for kiddos. We've seen some kids struggle with headaches, going to bed early. So there's definitely been some not so positive effects to this, but how do we work through them, right? Because right now this is our norm. And as much as we want to fight it and have discussions about it and tell people how we feel and what we want, All those things don't change what it is right now. So how do we combat dealing with what it is right now and helping our kids get through that? And so that's what we're trying to do, is set them up for success. And when we're setting them up for success, they realize, you know, there are times that things aren't going to go as planned, and we got to plan for those times that aren't going to go as planned. So if they need a break, what does that look like? If you're home with them, you know, are we setting set times for breaks? Are we saying, you know, they can call your name? Like, what is asking for a break looks like? And that's something we have to plan for, set up. A lot of the kiddos maybe aren't muted, so teaching your kid how to mute themselves before they talk has been something that's definitely been needed. If a teacher, some of the new teachers haven't learned how to mute all of their kids, so it's been kind of chaotic for some families. So teaching your kid how to mute themselves and unmute themselves when they want to talk has been helpful. I'm teaching them how to turn off their screen if they need to exit. So maybe they're going to go to the bathroom, they're going to get up and get a drink, or whatever the plan is, helping them to understand that. And just, again, working with everyone on getting some grace during this time to figure out what do we need to do and what do we need to put in place. So when we're struggling, what do we do? So a lot of people have said, hey, my kiddo's mental health is really struggling right now. What kind of things can we do to help those things? And so before we were saying set up some Zooms and some pods for families so that your kids can have some interactions. And that worked for a while. The kids are really, really struggling now having some of that interaction and physical touch and things like that. So, so my next suggestion is looking at what's your okay pod, what's your okay in terms of exposure. So is it the neighborhood kids? So, you know, kids within the neighborhood have been playing with each other all along, so you feel comfortable with that. But what kind of pods can you put together? Maybe it's family, that your kiddos have cousins or things that you're okay with. But what is their interaction? You know, what kind of interaction can you give them and still feel safe? And that's going to look different for everyone, but encouraging you to look at it and say what's okay. How does that look like for our family? And then discussing with other families, what does that look like for you? Because I want to make sure that we're on the same page. We can't make assumptions right now on what other people are allowing for their exposure, but what are the rules for that? If you're having older kids or maybe kids that drive, discussing what's the rules of your car in terms of passengers. So my kids both drive, and our rule is that if someone gets into your car, they need to put hand sanitizer on and a mask. If they don't want to do that, that's fine. They don't need a ride that badly. So it's not negotiable. And helping my kids to get that backbone to say that's not negotiable. If you would like a ride from me, these are the things that need to happen. Because we found that, you know, my kids didn't have to go to a quarantine because of that rule in our car, where someone else was a contact of a contact. And because they were in the car with them for more than 15 minutes, they had to go to quarantine. So really discussing with your kids right now, what are the rules for your house? What are the rules for their cars? What is the rules that you guys are going to abide by? And if you work with me long enough or attend my sessions, you'll hear me often say for you to say to your kids, what are the rules? So what does that look like? Meaning, a lot of times we talk about the positive side or the pro side. So if we're going to go into a store, we're going to discuss what the rules and expectations are. So when we go in the store, I expect for you to walk alongside the cart. I expect for you to not get things unless I ask you to. We are not buying things that are not on our list. We're not buying toys today. So whatever your discussion is about what you're doing and what you're not doing. And then we go into the store and we do that, right? So if there starts to be a break in the rule, we say, hey, what was the rule? What did we discuss prior to coming to the store? It looks like you just asked me for a toy, and we discussed prior to come in that we weren't buying toys today, right? And your kiddo, a lot of times are more agreeable, like, oh yeah, you're right. You did say no toys, or to not ask for things, versus having to have that discussion or argument while we're already in the store. So you'll hear me say a lot, what are the rules? And we set those rules up before the action occurs. It's much easier to be proactive than reactive, right? And so setting ourselves up for success means discussing what the rules are or what the expectations are ahead of time before it occurs. So that's why when I said, like with my teens, like, what is the rule before someone gets in your car? They have to have a mask on and they have to put hand sanitizer on. Now, my kids have formed pods for the summer. And so like we have been within those pods, and there's a little more lax to that, because I've discussed with those other parents what our expectations are and what that looks like and who's coming in and out of the houses. And so they have agreed upon that. So now we have a pod of kids who can, spend some time together. So, looking at and discussing with your friends or your family, what does a pod look like for us and how can we function in that pod? But you'll hear me say a lot of times, what are the rules? And when your kid is not following the rules, you can gently remind them and say, hey, what was the rules we discussed? And then if they cannot follow those rules, and that's when we kind of move to consequences. So what is the consequence for not following the rules? For my household, if I find out that you've been allowing people to hop in the car without their mask and their hand sanitizer, then you lose your car. The first strike, you lose your car for the day. We have a 3-strike rule, and go from there. My kids do not like to be dependent on me. I always run late. Sorry, I'll get to you when I get to you. I'm busy. So they much like their independence. And so they are very much willing to follow the rules because they like their freedom. But we have those pre-established. So, when I have to have a consequence with them, we discuss that they've already broken a rule. So if we're talking about littles, what does the rules look like for the morning? We kind of discuss what does being a good listener look like. And so if they're breaking that rule, right? So a good listener or a person paying attention, maybe sitting in their chair, they're watching the screen. If they're supposed to take notes, they're taking notes. They're supposed to have their book with them, having their water bottle, having their lunch at the table, whatever the expectations are. So we set that up to begin with. And then if they are breaking those rules, then we ask them, what is the rule? So if they're saying, Mom, can I, get something out of the cupboard to eat? You would say, what is the rule? Then the rule would be, oh, we only eat what's in our lunchbox. Yeah, buddy, that's right. So we can't get anything out of the cupboard, can we? No, we can't, because the rule is we eat what's in our lunchbox. So it's much easier to have that conversation when there's a rule already set, because if not, it can go like this. Can I get something out of the cupboard? No. Why not? Because I said no, we're not doing that. Well, what am I supposed to eat? It can become a battle or a fight or a struggle. But if you've already on the pre-side had that discussion, it cuts down on those arguments or those fights or that going back and forth with your kiddos, because you've already established what's acceptable and what's not. So hopefully that makes a little more sense when we say, what's the rule? And you can do this with, many things that you're going to do. So what's the rule for going outside and playing? What's the rule for, lunchtime? What's the rule for after school? You can set up several rules, right? It's not just one time or blanketed. You can have multiple rules for multiple things, but the key to the success for that is having it on the flip side. So what's the rules ahead of time? What kind of things do we discuss before it happens so that we don't have to be reactive? Kids also like to know consequences. So setting up what's the consequences for breaking the rules. So what will happen the first, second, third time, right? Hopefully you don't have to have that discussion more than 3 times, but sometimes. If you ever need help in kind of navigating that, let me know. We can set up some one-on-ones. Rules do not have to be the same for each kiddo. If something works better for one kid than the other, then you can have those conversations. That's one-on-ones with the kids, and set up what's the plan for them, and what's going to be successful for them. So not all the time is the rule the same, but sometimes it may be. If you're setting up family rules, the family rule might be in the evenings we don't watch TV before dinner, right? So if someone is caught on the TV, then there's a consequence for just that person who was watching it. But if everybody sat down and was like, oh, the TV's on, I'll enjoy it. Well, we would say, what is the rule? We don't watch TV before dinner. And some kid, but it was on, right? Or I didn't turn it on, but they indulged in it. And so they didn't follow the rule. And everyone is doing it, doesn't quite work, right? So you knew you were breaking the rule. You didn't come tell me. You didn't have a discussion about it. You sat down and watched TV. So you too will get a consequence, even though you weren't the one who turned it on, because we have an overall rule of we don't watch TV before dinner. So again, what are those rules? How are they set up? And what are the consequences to them are something that we talk about often with the parents. Let's see, making sure I cover everything here. Okay, so rules for social media. So now the kids are online. Do you have any rules for things that they are allowed to scroll through or not? You know, what's the expectation of what they're going to be doing on their iPad or their computer? I think this is very important to set up now of your expectations of what is allowed and what's not allowed. So some devices have access to YouTube, and there are some things on YouTube that's not kid friendly. So, you know, setting some protocols up for if you're going to use YouTube. If you're going to do something on the computer, what are the rules to that? A lot of times parents are opening computers or opening iPads or screening devices that normally would have a lock on them or parental controls. And so the kids are having more freedom and more access. So have you set up some rules about what's okay to do and what's not okay to do, so that if you're finding there's an issue, that you can again say, hey, what are the rules that we discussed prior to you using that? I've had some parents say, you know, but I can't take their iPad away now because they need it for school. So I can definitely agree with that. But what we can do is lose our free time, iPad time, or lose our free access. So maybe they have to be on restriction where, you know, now you have to log them in. Yes, it's inconvenient for you, but it kind of takes away the freedom for them to be free searching on different apps. So having that discussion, what does being on social media look like? What's okay? Not social media, I'm sorry, the internet. What's okay? Maybe your kiddos were kiddos who didn't have social media, and now that's becoming something pressing in your home because some teachers are saying, you know, post this or post that, tag this, tag that, and your kid didn't have social media. So being able to have that discussion with them about what's acceptable, what's not, what you're going to allow and what you aren't going to allow, and then having that communication with the teacher, because sometimes teachers don't think about that. You know, in the age of high school, like everyone has Snapchat or everyone has Instagram, you know, but that's not true. There are households who still say, you know, social media is not allowed at my house. So, you know, we never want to make a kiddo feel embarrassed or something because that's a rule at their house that they're not allowed to have. So talking with the teacher, if that's something they're encouraging or you see, and reaching out and saying, hey, my kid doesn't have free social media access. They can't post and tag. They can't do this because we don't allow that. Taking that stand as a parent and communicating that. So it doesn't mean you have to change your standards and principles. It means that you need to communicate with the teacher and your child and say, this is still not allowed in our house and we're not going to do it. That may be hard, but you know, as we stick to the rules as parents and continue to be consistent, our kids will learn that that's just not what they're going to do and that they have rules to follow and that's what your expectations of them are. And so while that's hard sometimes, your kids will appreciate your consistency because they know that you're not going to change the rules just because someone else is doing it. The things that are supposed to happen in your house, you know, continue to happen in your house. And they know what to expect of you. So, you know, if they break a rule, they know my parent is going to give a consequence. And, you know, it might not be worth it to me to break that rule because I don't want to have that consequence given. And I know my parent's going to do it. When parents come to me for one-on-ones, one of the first things that we find is that there's a lack of consistency. And so inconsistent parenting makes it hard for you to give rules and consequences because your kids aren't going to, you know, are you going to enforce it today? Are you not? And so there's no reason to change their behavior if you're not going to enforce the rules. So that's one of the things that we really work on when you come see me with one-on-ones. What's the consistency like? Now, as every parent, there are times when we are tired. We don't really feel like dealing with it. Maybe we let a few things slide. But what we see, you know, with kids and our preteens and even our teenagers, you kind of heard the saying, you know, when a kid starts to slide, they turn it into ice skating. And that's how it works, right? So if my parent isn't going to be consistent, maybe I'll take my chances and see, are they really going to give me a consequence? Are they really going to keep their word? If they keep their word this time and not next time, then the third time I can challenge them because you didn't do that last time. And so consistency is really one of the key things that we have for behavior change, because we know things are going to be consistent, then we want to think about our actions before we do them. It's kind of like when people put like those training collars on dogs, right? At some point, the dog doesn't go to the electric fence anymore because they've had a zap, right? And someone has said, oh, but our fence was turned off and the dog still didn't do it. Well, the dog has been trained to not do that because they know what's going to happen next. And by no means am I encouraging that type of thing for children. But the point is that once people learn that there is consistency, they don't always challenge you, and they know what's expected of them. All right. Sorry here, I didn't want to put, like I said, I didn't want to put those slides in front of you. The next thing is that we know that everyone likes to be praised, right? Sorry, me and this ball are gonna move here. Kiddos like praise. So how much time are we spending praising our kids? A lot of us are struggling and discussing with our kiddos the things that they shouldn't be doing, the things that we expect of them. But when are we giving compliments, right? I like the way you were able to stay on your Zoom today. I like the way you asked your teacher a question. I heard you ask your teacher a question in a very nice tone. You know, are they still doing their chores? It really helps me out when you're able to still do your chores so that mom can get her work done. You know, because it's very important for me to get my work done because that's what pays our bills. But really communicating with our kids and giving them compliments. We like compliments too. We love what our boss would say, you know, hey, you've done such a good job. I see you working hard. We want to hear those things too. So, you know, complimenting our kiddos when they're doing things so that they feel good about themselves. They want to succeed. They want to work hard. And kids love compliments. If you think about when they were little, how many times they were like, Mom, watch me do this. And they're like touching their arm up. And they're like, Mom, watch me do this. Now we're like in the stance, right? There's nothing big, but they just want you to watch them. Kids don't really grow out of that. It just becomes a little different. So now it's, did you see me do? Did you know I did this? Just encouraging that praise so that your kids want to open up and talk to you. We kind of mentioned mental health. Well, during this time, it's really kind of a struggle. We're seeing children and adults alike really struggle with their mental health right now. So making sure that you have an open door platform for your kids to come discuss things with you is really important. So are you checking in with your kiddos? How is your day going? I encourage us not to just say, well, how was your day today? Because we get fine, okay. I always encourage you for the 2 questions. So tell me 2 things that went well about your day and tell me 2 things that you wish went better, right? So that gives us a chance to hear from our kids that things that went great and things that didn't go so great. I used to do this in the car when I picked up kids, whether that was like the daycare, you know, ins and outs, or picking kids up from sports. But now that my kids drive themselves, you know, I'm having to make more of an effort to have those conversations with my kids because we're not in the same space often. But I still want to be able to check in with them and for them to have that conversation with me. Sometimes I see that parents are not checking in with their kids and family so much because you feel like you're always together. But just because you're in the same space doesn't mean you're having these important conversations with your kiddos. It doesn't mean that you're checking in on them, how's their well-being, their mental health, what's going on. The kiddos that are on social media, you know, bullying and is really big in social media. You know, how many likes you get is important. I've worked with some parents whose kiddos have done things they would have never thought their kiddos would have done, but they did it for the likes. They want people to like them and to be popular. So making sure that we're checking in on our kids and what's going on with them is very important. You know, are your kids involved in any type of extracurricular activities? Some people are allowing their kids to play sports right now. If that's something your family feels comfortable doing, you know, that might be an outlet. If that's not something your family feels comfortable doing, what kind of things are we doing as a family to get out and walk and stay healthy with ourselves? How are we encouraging ourselves to just have that family bonding time? So, you know, are we taking walks? Are we outside, you know, in the front yard, the backyard? What are we doing with each other? I think one of the misconceptions we have is that because we're all together, that we are doing things together. And sometimes we're just in the house being and not really doing. So making an effort to spend time with each other. That's not time with everyone, in their rooms or around each other on screens, but that we're actually engaging in each other. We're talking to each other. We're encouraging each other. We're asking how each other's day are. We're getting out energy, right? Because when we are frustrated and tired and aggravated, those are more likely times that we're going to unleash on each other and not mean the things that we say or do to each other. And that definitely happens with our littles, right? They're wound and they're fed up and they've been on screens all day. And so their tempers are, quick to discharge. So how are we helping them to release some of that? If we're eating lunch, then are we having quote unquote recess? Because that was what they would do at school. So, is there a way that your kiddos can go outside and get some of that energy out? If there's not, how can we do that after school or before bed? How are we getting that energy out and being able to really get some physicalness in us? Maybe something that your family should look at or needs to look at beforehand. Before we just don't want kids to really struggle with their mental health and us to have to pull them out of it. So just working with our families and ourselves and saying, how are we addressing our mental health and keeping it in a positive way? Some people are choosing coloring books and coloring as a way of relaxing. And so those coloring books aren't like general coloring books that we use all the time. We have some special coloring books that we pull out that we use in the evening times or as a way of relaxation. I have some parents who are doing, a bubble bath where they're, filling the tub up and they're using some Dove dishwashing liquid and they're making lots of bubbles, right? That's the kids' release that they only do one day a week, or that's the fun thing they do on Fridays. They're just really trying to incorporate some fun during this crazy time. So I'm definitely willing to work with you on a one-on-one. I think in the beginning, Sarah said that our funding is brought to you by the Boone County Children's Services Board. So that means anything that you do with me is free. They fund me to work with the families in our community. We do have to be in Boone County, but they fund us to work with to work with families and to work on these issues because we have seen that parents have said, hey, parenting is hard and I need help. And if I can get help with my parenting, like I can also have better mental health on my own. So that's another thing that we're really working on. I think we have really kind of hit almost everything. What kind of questions do you guys have? What kind of questions can we work or can we talk through? Do you guys have anything that you thought, oh, when I came to this seminar, I would hear about and maybe that I haven't touched on? There's definitely things I might have missed. So if there's something you were thinking about or you wish you had heard. Oh, yes, thank you. Screen time in kids. Okay, so a lot of times we encourage the least amount of screen time as possible. Well, now we're on screens all day. So what does that look like for our kids? So now we're looking at when can we have screen time and how much? So during the day, if they are on screens nonstop, then we're looking at only doing 30 minutes to, depending on their age, an hour in the evenings. Now, as they get older, that's harder because a lot of them have phones and they're on their phones. But for our littles, that means maybe it's picking a show before bed to be able to watch, picking a game that they're going to play, and we set a timer. But we're really looking for that, that 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. That may seem really, really hard for kids because maybe they got 2 hours beforehand or they got more time. The other thing that you can look at is breaking that time up. So let's say you're going to allow an hour, working with your kiddos and saying, hey, when do you want this time? Do you want it all in the evenings? We don't want it right before bed. So, is it, when is the best time for that? Is it after dinner? Then we do our screen time before we get ready to do baths. Perhaps you decide that, we've been on screens enough and that we will only limit our screen times to the weekends. And so that they can earn screen time or that they can, they know that's just going to be the rule, right? So there's no point in asking. I think what makes it hard is that we allowed screen time. Now we have school that is all screen time. And so we know that continuous screen time is not best for the kids. So as we look at kind of renegotiating those hours, our kiddos may not understand why they lose their fun time. One of the things that you can do is incorporate other fun time into that. So discuss, hey, we're going to only have, 15 minutes at evening on a screen time. The problem with 15 minutes is it's really hard to watch a show. A lot of shows are 18, 22 minutes, somewhere in there. And as everyone knows, you hate to like stop a show in the middle because you may not find it again, or you want to finish watching it. So discussing how much screen time we're going to have, but then saying, hey, but we'll be able to have game nights. So incorporating more board games back into the family time, incorporating things that are family time that don't revolve around screens. We really would like you to be off screens an hour before bedtime to give kids eyes and brains time to relax and just kind of decompress. So an hour before bedtime is recommended. If you don't have that much time, then at least 30 minutes, or understanding that there has to be that wind down time. So if you can't give at least 30 minutes, then maybe screen times in the evenings isn't a good choice for you, and working on what other things you guys can do. Looks like we have another question. Are there some suggestions for getting kids out of bed on time for school? I have a middle school age ADHD kiddo and need some positive ways to approach it. So yes, so I would say, what's the rule? So what time do we get up? What time, what's our time for the day? So if, I don't know what time school starts at 7:30 for you, perhaps, then, how long is it going to take? If your kid's in middle school, I suggest having a discussion with them. The discussion kind of would go maybe something like this. It's really a struggle for me to have to fight you every morning to get up. And so these are my expectations. School starts at whatever time. I expect you to be a ready learner by, so, maybe that's 15 minutes or 20 minutes ahead of time. So how much time do you need to meet that expectation, right? Have them involved in it. So if you need time to wake up and roll around in bed and lay in bed and get yourself ready to get up for the day, that may mean that I need to wake you up at 6:30. So that you can roll around and just get yourself ready for the day until 7. And then at 7, you're going to get up, you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to have breakfast, and you're going to be at the learning spot by 7:20, so that you can start your day successfully. But really encouraging them in the decision making part of it, so that it's not a fight and it's not an argument with you all the time, because you're setting the rules, you're making them angry, they're not ready to get up. The counterpart to that is discussing, if you can't do this successfully, when I've brought you in on the conversation. So I asked you, how much time do you need in the mornings to get yourself together? I've given you that time and it still seems like you can't come ready to be a learner, then we'll have to look at, perhaps you need to go to bed earlier. So we'll have to take some of your evening time away, and maybe that's your free time, so that you can get up earlier in the morning. A lot of teens don't want to get up that evening time, and they'll decide, okay, I'll do what I need to do on the morning side because I don't want to lose that evening time. So again, having discussions with them. So if you can't get up at the allotted time that we agreed upon, then the consequence will be, and what are our consequences? Or you say the next step is that we have to take that time in the evening time. So if it took them an extra 30 minutes to get themselves together, that means in the evening times, you need to take away 30 minutes and they need to go to bed 30 minutes earlier, because they obviously need it on the other side. A lot of times they'll say, I don't need that. I'll get myself together. I don't want to lose my evening time, or whatever is happening. So they'll kind of change themselves in the morning. Again, it depends on if you're waking them up, are they setting their own timers to get up? What's that going to look like? I mentioned I have ADHD kiddos. I have one that gets up on their own and one that still needs assistance, right? The alarm could be going off and blaring and they would hear nothing. So it has to be woke up. So, what is that morning routine going to look like? Do I need to wake you up? Can you wake up on your own? Do you set an alarm on the phone? Do you set an alarm on Alexa or Google, or what does that look like? Oh, sorry, I'm Googling here, and she said she didn't understand what I was wanting, or Alexa here, wanting for her, sorry. So whatever that looks like in your household, how are you setting them up for success? And having that discussion and incorporating that with them so that they know the expectations that you have of them and what time they're supposed to meet those expectations. So again, if your kiddo is one that needs to get up and roll around and have some time to get themselves together, discussing how much time do you need so that I can figure out what time that we need to make sure that you're up by. If they can roll out of bed, brush their teeth, have some food and sit at the table in 20 minutes, then you say, I'll wake you up 30 minutes early. We got about 10 minutes of leeway time, and that's what we'll do. But it's really kind of dependent upon how much time the kiddo needs to get themselves together. And again, setting up consequences. So if you're not ready to be a learner at the spot, wherever that is, the table, the desk, the whatever, by whatever time it is, then these are the consequences that we're going to set forth. And again, if you'd like a one-on-one with me to kind of discuss what kind of consequences would work best for your kiddo, or what kind of things that would be work best for you, I'm happy to help with that.
Yay. Sarah's kind of back here. I'm going to go ahead and put up the poll. Please do ask another question of Katherine, but I've got to put up the poll because it has to happen while we're on. And if you can take a few, a minute to fill it out, it'd be great. We have found out that you have to answer every question or it doesn't go through,
Okay.
Which is very interesting. So I'm just going to put it up, but it's going to look funny because it's going to cover her up. But keep asking a question if you have one. Katherine, how do they reach you?
You may reach me by email. I don't know, is there a way for you, Sarah, to send it out to everyone after the fact? I will put it in chat now.
Put it in the chat, and I think I can later.
Oh, too bad I typed all that somewhere, not in the chat.
I'll write myself a note while people are filling out the poll.
Okay, so a few other questions that we get asked about our services. Right now, they all are done by Zoom. So there is no in-person. I work with you as the parent, so you don't have to find a way for me to meet with your kiddos. I usually work with you, and then you implement at home. So I don't need to see your kiddos. So we're on Zoom. I don't need to see your kiddos. I'm not structured and set to a 8 to 5. I usually try to work with parents on whatever kind of timing we need to do. If that's, at a nap time, whatever kind of time frame that is, I'll definitely try to work with you. Sometimes we've even met even later after some of the kiddos have gone to bed. At 7:30, we've made, a 7:30 appointment or something like that. I really, really try to work with you in a time frame that works best for you. How long are sessions? Sessions are usually about 45 minutes to an hour. We usually, how many sessions people ask? We usually work about 4 to 6 sessions. So the first thing you do, we kind of discuss what's going on, what are our goals. We make a plan of action. I send you back to do that plan of action. We check back in. We discuss what works well, what maybe needed some tweaking. We do that tweaking, and you send you back out. You work on it. We come back in. We say, how are things going? If things are going great and there's nothing else we need to work on, then I usually have you check in with me a couple of weeks by email only to make sure things are still going to go well. And then we're kind of done with each other. Then you come back if there's any other issues. Right now, we are only funded to see kiddos 8 years old and younger. These sessions are open to any age, like kind of when we have these seminars like this, is open to any age of parents with kiddos. But our one-on-one sessions, we're funded as early childhood right now. So that's 8 years old and younger for a one-on-one session. Trying to think of anything else.
If you missed it in the chat, I put the next one that Katherine will be doing here for the library is Monday, October 19th. same time, and the session will be coping with stress. So we hope you can join us for that one as well.
Yes.
I'm going to end the polling right now. Looks like we've got a few people that answered it. Yay.
So again, reach out to me by email. Sometimes there's just some suggestions that I can give you. If you don't fit in the age group for us to do a one-on-one, sometimes there's just some suggestions that I can give, and I'm happy to do that. But reach out, regardless. If I can't be of assistance to you, I'll be happy to refer you to other places that could maybe be assistance to you, as well as some of the places that are also funded by Boone County Families. So I am happy to help in any way I can. Reach out and let me know.
Let's everybody give, I know she can't hear us, but clap. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Katherine. We can't wait till next month to learn more. Thank you all for coming. I know how hard it is sometimes to get back on a device in the evening. So we're happy to have you here. Please spread the word about the one next month. And if you have any library questions, feel free to email kids@dbrl.org, and we'll do our best to help you that way too. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, someone asked, how do we access the recording? Is that something we'll discuss and then email out to the people? Can you email out to participants?
What I will